You mean, we refer to it as the bent shaft paddle. And it actually comes from traditional canoeing. A guy named Gene Jensen, I believe in the 50s or in the 60s. Gene Jensen is the first guy that we know of, at least he's credited with that, of putting the angle in the blade. And let me grab a blade here and show you something here. And what we're talking about is this angle right here. The shaft comes in and the blade is offset an angle. This happens to be 10 degrees. The reason Gene originally put the angle in here, I believe, I never talked to Gene, but this is what the story that's been passed down, is when you're paddling, the most effective angle for the blade to be at when you're applying power is straight up and down like this. And so what this angle does is it optimizes when the paddle is in good paddling positions, which if this is the front of the craft, it'd be kind of leaning forward like this, coming through like this, and then once you start tilting back towards the tail of the canoe or whatever you're in, it's not as good of an angle. You don't get as much traction. So the angle relates to how the body mechanics work and what happens when what we do during the stroke. And so they found this out, marathon paddlers. They started adding the angle, and they found that, I believe they found they went faster, or at least it felt a lot better. In outrigger, we used to paddle with straight shaft paddles. Blade there's no angle on it. And as the influence of the North American paddlers came over, Illinois Brigade, I believe in somewhere around 1975, came over and raced in this race called the Molokai Hoi. Just basically obliterated the field, and they had different equipment. They had paddles with angles on it. So the Hawaiians, being very adaptable people, being functional, they said, let's put an angle on our paddle, and that's kind of where it started. 10 degrees is about the standard amount of angle that people use. I started building paddles right around the time they started getting angled paddles. And so we built them at 5, 7, 10, even more. But what we found was that most of the people liked 10 degrees, and that's how we settled on it. It was not any kind of scientific testing, speed testing, anything of that sort. It was people just told us this feels good. And so that's what we settled on.
Yeah. Has that changed much at all? Have you had people trying to experiment now that they're dialing things in more? Or?
Are you clairvoyant? Because that's what I've been doing like this whole year.
Yeah, I have a GoPro in here. I've been watching for about 6 months. The footage.
Yeah, we've been experimenting a lot with the blade angle, and one of the things that's been happening is people are adapting how they paddle. And you're a stand-up site, so that I'll address that more. That really is a moving target as far as what is the appropriate stand-up style. You know, is it bent over at the waist? Is it standing straight upright? Or somewhere in between? Well, one of the formulas that we've been working on, we've been finding out is that the more you bend over at the waist, the less angle you probably need. If you're upright more, you can benefit from having more blade angle. Now, this is stuff we've derived from the canoe, and it's from, I watched a lot of video, and that's where I kind of got this idea, and we did a lot of blind testing, and we found that basically that formula kind of works, that idea. Less angle if you bend over at the waist quite a bit, if you're more upright, more angle. And you could ask in a canoe, why would you want to sit more upright? Well, one, it's hard on the back to bend over at the waist a lot. The other one is you can get your tempo up a lot easier. As you bend forward and back in a canoe stroke, that's a lot of motion, and it slows the stroke rate down as opposed to staying upright and just driving and using your core muscles. There's a lot of paddlers who paddle very fast, who bend over a lot, and there's a lot of paddlers who paddle very fast sitting upright. It's a matter of style. We've been experimenting with SUP, adding angle to the blades, and most of the response, almost, I would say like 90% of the response is very positive.